What if Jon Snow never stayed a bastard? What if, after Robert Baratheon's death, the greatest secret in Westeros was finally revealed? For years, Jon Snow lived with one name: Bastard. Unwanted. Unclaimed. A boy raised in Winterfell, sent to the Wall and buried under a lie even he did not understand. But when Howland Reed arrives in King's Landing with proof of Lyanna Stark's final secret, everything changes. A hidden marriage, a lawful heir, a dying king's final will, and one name that could destroy the Lannisters, shake the North, and split the Seven Kingdoms apart. Jon Snow is not Ned Stark's shame. He is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, the true-born heir to the Iron Throne. Now, as Cersei's lies collapse, Stannis makes his claim, Tywin watches from the west, and the realm holds its breath. Jon must ride south from the Wall, not as a brother of the Night's Watch, but as the king Westeros never expected. Will Jon Snow save the realm from war? Or will the Iron Throne turn the quiet wolf into the dragon everyone fears? Subscribe if you are new on this channel. Also, I can see more than 80% plus people watches our video, but they haven't subscribed yet. If you love the Game of Thrones theories and what ifs, subscribe, it means a lot. Also, if you have any story suggestions, feel free to write below. Now let's start.
The Cranogman came with the rain. Eddard Stark had gone to sleep that evening with the certainty, at last, that he had solved the riddle of Jon Arryn's death. It lay in a book with a silver lion on its cover, and in a brothel that smelled of stale wine and older sins, and in the yellow-green eyes of 3 Lannister children who ought by all the laws of blood to have eyes of Baratheon black. He had gone to sleep late and alone and with a letter half written on his desk that began, "To my brother Stannis," and had got no further. He woke to the sound of boots in the outer chamber and Jory Castle's voice, low and urgent. "My lord, a man swears he is known to you at this hour. He will not give a name to the guards. He says the name is for you alone." Ned sat up. The rain was loud on the tiles, a steady hushing that softened the city and made the red keep feel, for a moment, almost like home. He pulled on a heavy wool mantle over his shift and went out into the antechamber. The man waiting there was small and brown and wet to the skin. He stood with the quiet stillness of a pond before the pike strikes. Ned knew him the instant he saw him, as a man knows the shape of a thing he has not seen in 20 years and has thought about nearly every day. Howland. "My lord of Stark." Howland Reed pushed back the hood of his cloak, and water ran from the fringe of his beard. He had not grown since the trident. He had only grown older, thinner, more like the reeds of his own neck. His eyes had not changed. "Leave us," Ned said to Jory, and Jory, who knew how to read a voice, took the guards with him and shut the door. "You are a long way from Greywater Watch," Ned said. "I have been a long way from Greywater Watch for more than a month," Howland said. "I rode hard. I did not want a raven to cross the distance before me. What I bring is not to be trusted to ravens." Ned did not ask. He gestured to the chair by the fire, and Howland sat, and Ned poured wine that neither of them drank. The fire crackled. The rain hushed. Somewhere very far away, a watchman called the hour in a voice that could not quite carry over the water. "Tell me," Ned said at last. "Your sister wrote a letter on her last day, my lord," Howland said. "She made me swear not to speak of it until I was certain. I have been certain for some time. I was wrong to wait. I see that now. I beg your pardon for it, Lyanna." "Lyanna, yes." Howland opened the satchel at his feet. From it he drew a bundle wrapped in oilcloth and tied with waxed cord. He set it on the table between them as carefully as a man sets down a newborn. "There are 3 things in here, my lord," he said. "A writ of annulment from the High Septon Maynard, signed and sealed in the year of the false spring. A marriage oath sworn before a heart tree on the Isle of Faces, witnessed by 3. Myself, Sir Arthur Dane, and a silent sister whose hand I do not know, and a letter in your sister's hand. Ned did not move, my lord, Howland said. I am sorry. For a long time he did not open it. He knew what was inside. He had known in some cold, deep place for 20 years. He had fed the knowing upon promises and lies until it grew thin and quiet and hid behind his honor like a wolf that has learned to sleep with its back to the wall. He looked at the bundle, and he looked at the fire, and he thought of a boy with a grave little face and gray eyes who had been told all his life that he was Ned Stark's shame. My name, he said to no one, and that was the whole of what he said for a long time. He read the letter last. Where is he? Howland asked softly. On the wall, Ned said. Ah, I sent him there. I could not leave him at Winterfell with Catelyn. I could not bring him south. I did not know what else to do with him. He made a sound that in another man might have been a laugh. I thought the wall would keep him safe. My lord, Howland said. He is safe nowhere now. No. The fire popped. Ned looked at the wax seal on the writ of annulment, and at the weirwood sap stain on the marriage paper, and at the last words of a sister who had died asking him to promise her. The roof of his mouth was dry. There is another thing, Howland said, and his voice was as gentle as Ned had ever heard a voice be. You know it already. I see it on you, the Queen's children. I know, Ned said. Then you know what is coming. The king when he knows. The king, Ned said. The word did not taste like a king. It tasted like a man he had loved once and did not know how to love any longer and did not know how to stop loving. I have not yet decided what to do. My Lord of Stark, Howland said. You have not the luxury of deciding. You have only the duty of choosing. That was true. Ned did not answer it. They sat after in silence that was not comfortable but was quiet, and the rain hushed the city, and the fire burned down to coals. At last Howland rose and said he would find a bed in the Hand's tower among the guards, and Ned said no. He would have a chamber made ready, and Howland said that a guardroom suited him as well as any, and Ned let him go. When he was alone, he took up a sheet of parchment and began to write to his son Jon. He got as far as the salutation and stopped. He could not make the words. He set down the pen. After a while he took up the first letter he had been writing to his brother Stannis and set it to the fire and watched it burn. In the morning the king rode out to hunt. Ned did not go. There were 100 good reasons and one true one. He could not look at Robert today. He sat the Hand's chair in the council chamber and let Pycelle mumble him through the petitions. He spoke little. He watched Littlefinger's eyes. He watched Varys's hands. He watched the door. At midday, Renly Baratheon came to the Hand's solar and closed the door behind him, and Ned knew before Renly spoke that Renly knew. Lord Stark. Renly's handsome face was paler than usual, as if he had slept badly and washed worse. You told me once that if the Queen's children are bastards, the throne by right passes to my brother Stannis. I did. I do not think you have sent him a raven. I have not. No, Renly said. I did not think. I have a different proposal for you, Lord Stark, if you will hear it. Ned would not hear it. He had heard enough last night to make him certain that every proposal would be the wrong one, because no man yet living in the Red Keep knew what Ned knew. He let Renly speak anyway. Renly had a scheme of Tyrells and Tarths and a fleet of flowers. He had a crown in his voice and Laura's in his heart. He had everything a man needs to want a throne except the throne. When Renly was finished, Ned said, I will think on it. Think quickly, Renly said. My brother's body has a way of outrunning his wit. Your own hand is too honest to make a king of itself. If you do nothing, Cersei will make Joffrey king before the week is out, and we will all be running for boats. I will think on it. Renly went out. Ned listened to the boots receding in the hall, and then he sat for a long time with his face in his hands. He was thinking about a boy with a grave little face and gray eyes, and he was thinking about a king who had loved his sister, and he was trying to work out, at last, what it is honor demands of a man when honor is the knife that cuts the throat. A page scratched at the door. "My lord hand." "They have brought the king back." Ned was on his feet before he heard the rest. "He is hurt, my lord, the boar." He took the stairs two at a time. The corridor outside the king's chambers was thick with men. Kingsguard in their white cloaks, a knot of Lannister household guards whose tabards the queen had not yet thought to remove, a pair of Stark guards that Jory had put there without being told. Barristan Selmy stood at the door like a rock in a brown river. He looked at Ned, and Ned looked at him, and Barristan stepped aside. Inside, the bed was a wreck. Robert Baratheon lay on it with a sheet stained from his ribs to his knee. The smell was bad already. The hot copper smell of blood and the sour under smell of a gut, opened too long. A ragged tear ran down his left side from the short ribs to the hip, and Maester Pycelle was doing something to it with cloth and thread, and a cup of milk of the poppy that Robert would not touch. Varys stood at the foot of the bed, small and neat and wet about the eyes in a way Ned could not decide was real. Cersei stood by the window with her back half to the room. Joffrey was not there. Tommen was not there. Miecella was not there. Only the queen, the spider, the maester, and now the hand. "Ned," Robert's voice was thick, "get these vultures out." "Your Grace," Pycelle said, "the wound out, all of you leave the hand." Pycelle looked at Cersei. Cersei did not turn from the window. "Your Grace, out." Pycelle scuttled. Varys glided. Cersei turned at last, and when her green eyes met Ned's he saw the cold calculation in them, the measuring glance of a woman who has not slept in a day and has spent the hours making lists. She walked out without a word. The door shut. Ned heard Sir Barristan's voice low in the corridor, putting the Stark guards on the inner door and the Lannister guards nowhere at all. He sat on the edge of the bed. Robert reached for him, and Ned gave him his hand. It was the boar. Robert said as if this were a thing he had been practicing to say. "The damned boar got under. I was drunk. Tell Lancel no, don't tell them I was drunk. They will know already. Ned, I'm dying." "Yes," Ned said. There were many comforts he had given dying men over the years. He had found that the truth was the only one that ever did any good. "I am glad you are here," Robert said. "I am glad it is you. I am glad it is not Cersei. She left of her own will." "Good." Robert's laugh was bad. It came up with a pink foam. "Good. Ned, listen. The boy Joffrey, Robert." Ned said. He had meant to wait. He could not wait. There was not enough waiting left. "Before I say anything of Joffrey, I must tell you something about my sister." Robert looked at him. The pain sharpened his face into something like the face of the young man who had once loved Lyanna. "Lyanna." "I did not keep all my promises to her, Robert. I kept one. I have kept one for 20 years. I promised I would protect her son." Robert's grip on Ned's hand tightened until it hurt. His mouth opened. Nothing came out of it for a long moment. "Say that again," he whispered. "Her son," Ned said. "And Rhaegar's son." They were wed, Robert, before she ever saw him ride at the tourney. He had been annulled from Aaliyah in the year of the false spring. They were wed beneath a heart tree on the Isle of Faces. I did not believe it. I would not believe it. I believed she had been taken and kept and broken. She was not. She rode with him. She bore him a son. She died of it at the Tower of Joy. The son is living. I raised him. I called him my bastard because I could not call him anything else. Robert made a sound. It was not a word. He closed his eyes and tears ran out from under the lids, and he was silent for a long time. Ned did not move. At last Robert said without opening his eyes, "His name, Jon, Jon." A breath that was almost a laugh. "You named him Jon after Arryn. After Arryn. You gave my dead rival's son my foster father's name, and you fed him with your own hand for 15 years. Yes." Robert opened his eyes. There was more in them than Ned had seen in Robert's eyes in 10 years. You are the worst and the best man I ever knew, Ned Stark. You are the only king I ever wanted to serve, Robert. Robert's eyes moved past him to the window, to the gray sky and the gray rain. Joffrey, not yours, Robert, none of them. Cersei's by her brother. He did not bother explaining how he had come to know. Robert was beyond explanation. Robert made a sound, and this one was a laugh, low and bitter and wondering, the sound of a man who has at last been given the pattern under the stain. The boar, he said. The wine in my skin, Lancel pouring her eyes the whole ride. Ned, did she? I do not know, perhaps. I sent her out of this room, I will see her answers for it. Perhaps. Robert closed his eyes again and shivered. Perhaps. Oh, Ned. For a long time he lay breathing. Ned fetched him water and held the cup. Robert drank and coughed, and the bandage under Pycelle's hands was wet through. Bring me parchment, Robert said at last. Robert, bring me parchment, damn you, sell me. Bring the old man Pycelle back, bring the spider. Bring Renly if he has not yet fled, I will have a will. They came. Pycelle with his milk and his needle, Varys with his slippers and his sorrow, Renly with his young face scrubbed and his eyes on the door. Sir Barristan stood at the foot of the bed in a silence that was worth 100 witnesses. Littlefinger came in last, as if by accident, and nobody sent him out, and Ned made a private note to remember it. Right, Robert said. Pycelle took the pen. Write it plainly in the common tongue. I, Robert of the House Baratheon, first of my name, he went through it. He was, for a dying man, astonishingly precise. He disinherited the children he had called his. He did not name them Cersei's bastards that could wait for the great council he would not live to see, but he named them, not of my seed, by confession made to me this day, which I now accept as truth. He did not name Stannis, he did not name Renly. When he came to the naming of his heir, he stopped. Ned, he said, come close. Ned came close, say it. His true name. Jon, Ned said low into the king's ear, Snow no more. Jon of the House Targaryen, second of that name. Son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, born of lawful marriage by the rights of the old gods and the new. Robert closed his eyes. A tear ran out from the corner of one. The Varys he could not see. The Pycelle he pretended was not there. The Renly whose breath had stopped. Barristan whose hand had gone to his sword hilt and then to his heart, as if confused which he needed more. Littlefinger who had not moved. Write it, Robert said a little louder. All of it. Pycelle's pen shook. He wrote it. It is to be kept secret, Robert said, until I am ashes and he is crowned. Read it back. Pycelle read it back. Right, Robert said. My seal, where is my seal? Here, your grace, said Renly, who had brought it from a chest. Press it. No, Ned, press it. You are the hand. Ned pressed the stag into the hot wax. His hand was steady. He had not thought it would be. Witness, Robert said. All of you say you witnessed. One by one they said it. Pycelle in a trembling mutter. Varys in a voice as soft as silk on silk. Renly in a voice that shook. Selmy in a voice like a bell. Littlefinger last, and Littlefinger's voice was the smoothest of them all, and Ned watched Littlefinger's face and wrote it in his memory in ink that would not fade. Copies, Robert said. 3. 1 for the hand. 1 for the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. 1 for the High Septon in the crypt of the Great Sept under seal. He made a sound that was trying to be a laugh. I never did trust you, Pycelle. Don't write a 4th. Your Grace, Pycelle managed. Go, all of you, copy it, send it. Ned, you stay. They went. Ned stayed. The king took a long time to die. He did not speak for most of it. Once he said, the boar. Once he said, Lyanna. Once, with his eyes open and fixed on Ned, he said, make me a promise, Ned. And Ned said, yes, Robert, without waiting to hear what it was. Do not let them kill him. I will not. Do not let him become his father. I will not. Do not, Robert said, and his voice thickened. Let him be alone like we were. No, Ned, "Do you remember?" "Yes," Ned said, who did not know what Robert was about to remember and did not need to. "Yes, I remember. Robert Baratheon, first of his name, died at the hour of the wolf, with his hand in his own and the Stark guards on the inner door. The coup began before the candles were changed. Ned had been expecting it. That did not mean he was ready for it. He had slept an hour on a cot in an antechamber after he had sent the copies of the will out with Barristan's personal seal laid over the royal, and when Jory shook him awake, he came up with a hand on his dagger and his heart already 2 rooms ahead. "The Queen's men, my lord," Jory said. "Jon O'Slint, the gold cloaks are on the gates." "How many?" "More than half, my lord. But not all. Littlefinger, gone. To the city, we think. Varys, in his chambers. He sent word by a child. He says the Queen has Pycelle, and Pycelle has a raven in the rookery addressed to Casterly Rock. Selmy, with us, my lord. Renly, gone with Sir Loras, south." Ned put on his boots and his sword and the grey cloak with the white fur. He went down into the yard. The rain had stopped. The city in grey light looked like wet iron. He found Barristan Selmy in the outer ward already, armed in white with a small knot of Stark men and a smaller knot of Baratheon loyalists who had taken the king's death hard and were looking for something to do about it. "Lord Hand." Selmy's voice was iron. "The will, safe. 1 copy with my man riding north. 1 copy in your keeping. 1 copy in the crypt of the Great Sept. A 4th copy in my doublet for the moment, for the men who must see it to believe what they are doing. Give the order." Ned drew the will from his doublet and read it aloud in the outer ward, to 50 men, in a voice that did not shake. When he was done, he let them think. He did not hurry them. He had served his whole life among men who needed a moment to believe a thing before they would do it. "Boys," Selmy said when the silence had gone on long enough. "The king is dead. The king's hand has read his will. There are 2 ways out of this yard today. One is to stand here with us and be remembered as the men who kept the king's peace. The other is to run. I will not call the second cowardice. I will only say, I am going up to the throne room and I am going to arrest the woman who poisoned her king and forged her children, and any man who wishes to come is welcome. Any man who wishes to go may go." Not one went. It was, as coups are, quick and ugly and without grandeur. Jon O'Slint met them at the foot of the Serpentine with 20 gold cloaks, and Barristan Selmy called him traitor and cut his belt and took him in the first pass. And the gold cloaks who followed Slint looked at each other and thought of their mothers and put down their spears. Sir Burrows Blount came at Ned from a turn of the stair with his sword up, and the sword came down before Jory Castle's crossbow bolt took Blount through the throat. And Ned sat down on the stair with a red line opening through the mail and the doublet at his side, and shook his head at the men who wished to carry him, and rose and went on. Sir Meryn Trant they found hiding in a garderobe with his sword still in its scabbard, and his breeches wet to the knees. Selmy took his sword and sent him to the black cells under Jory's guard, and afterward Selmy would not meet any man's eyes for a little while. Sir Ares Oakhart laid down his white cloak and opened the door to the Queen's chambers himself, and wept as he did it. Cersei was dressed. She had not been asleep. She had been waiting. She sat in the wooden chair by the window with her hair combed out and her hand on a small silver bell and her face painted for a coronation. She did not rise when Ned came in. She did not rise when Selmy came in behind him. "My Lord Hand," she said, "Your Grace. Is my son the king, your son?" Ned said, "Is not your husband's son? You know that, I know that. He is not the king." "Who then, Lord Stark, is the king?" Ned did not answer that. It was not hers to know yet. "Where is Jaime?" "With the king's host at Casterly Rock, my lady, on the king's commission, as you arranged." "And Tyrion, in the Vale, my lady, your good sister has him." "Ah," she smiled small. "The wall, you are sending me to the wall, to a tower, for now, until the new king decides what is to be done with you." Then make haste to crown him, Lord Stark. My lord father will be on the road." "Your father," Ned said, "is going to receive a letter before he hears any other. I would suggest you compose what answer you wish to make, for you will be writing to him when my son—" He stopped himself. Old habit and old tenderness of tongue when the king instructs you to. "Your son." Cersei's eyes narrowed and then widened, and in the widening was the first flicker of fear he had seen in her. "Your son, Lord Stark," Ned smiled. It was a Stark smile which is not a smile. "Take her to the dry tower, Sir Barristan. See to it that her children are fetched from their apartments and kept together and unharmed. Send for Sir Mandon Moore if he can be trusted, and for any Kingsguard who will renew their oaths to the dead king's will. I will write the ravens." "Yes, my lord." "Oh, and Sir Barristan. Maester Pycelle." "My lord, he has a raven addressed to Casterly Rock. If the raven has not yet flown, I will have it. And Pycelle." Ned looked a long time at the old man's door. He thought of the thin, trembling hand that had written out Robert's will, and of the milk of the poppy that had been offered and not accepted, and of how many kings and how many secrets that old hand had ushered through its fingers into how many cups. "Black cells," he said at last. "He is too old for rope and too useful for a headsman. Let the new king decide." In the Maester's turret they found the raven in its cage, the message tied to its leg, the knot not yet cinched tight. They took the raven and burned the message. In its place Ned, with Barristan's steady hand under his own elbow, wrote 3 letters. To Stannis Baratheon, Lord of Dragonstone, he wrote only, "Your brother is dead. His will names another. I will send you a copy by trusted hand. Come in peace. I am Ned who loved him too." To Tywin Lannister, Warden of the West, he wrote, "My lord, your daughter has been taken into custody by the king's hand, under the authority of the king's written will, which I shall send you under seal by the raven after this. Your grandchildren are well. If you value them, you will not march. If you march, you will be the traitor your house has never yet been." To his son at Winterfell, Robb Stark, he wrote, "Call the banners." Only to JON he could not write. It was not a raven task. It was not a maester's letter. It was not even a father's letter. He rubbed his face, and he took up a fresh piece of parchment, and he began again. And this time he wrote only 4 words, "Come home to me." He rolled it and sealed it with the direwolf of Stark, not the stag of Baratheon, not the 3-headed dragon he had never in his life drawn. He gave it to the Raven Master and said, "The Wall, Castle Black, Lord Commander Mormont or Maester Aemon, not Pycelle's men, our own." The Raven went north. At Castle Black the lift came up in a fog that the sun did not burn off until mid-morning. Jon Snow, who had his bow across his shoulder and the stain of last night's stew on his cuff, helped lower old Maester Aemon out onto the courtyard cobbles, and let Sam take the old man's arm. He was turning to his own duty, the armory, Sir Alizer, whatever insult was his portion today, when the raven came in. Jon heard Aemon's breath catch. He turned. Aemon's blind old face was lifted to the raven as if he could see it. His fingers, unfolded by years of ink and memory, found the ribbon on the leg without being guided. He untied it. He held the letter close under his chin. After a moment he said quietly, "Samwell, read it." Sam read it. Jon heard the words as if from far away. He heard the 4 words of his father's hand, and then he heard the other thing, the explanation that came after on another page in another hand, shorter and flatter and more afraid. Howland Reed had written what Ned could not, and he heard his own name in it. He heard the name Targaryen. He heard the name Rhaegar. He heard the word legitimate. He heard his mother's name, and that was the one that broke him. When his hands had stopped shaking enough, he walked, very carefully, up the stairs of the Lord Commander's tower, where Jeor Mormont was already waiting, because Jeor Mormont was not a man who could look at a raven arriving at that hour and not know. "Lad," Mormont said. "Sit." Jon did not sit. "My lord," he said, "I must go south. I thought you might when I saw the bird. I said a vow. I." Mormont was looking at him in a way he had never looked at him before, the way one looks at a hawk that has suddenly become a dragon on one's glove. "You said a vow when you did not know your own name, Jon Snow, Jon." He set his hands on the table. "A man may not be loosed lightly from the watch, but there are precedents. In the old time, when the Targaryen kings were in their glory, a brother of the Black was loosed to serve the realm at the king's command. There is a book at Castle Black that tells the form of the writ. I shall write it. You shall sign it. I shall send a copy to Winterfell and another to King's Landing. My lord, you will not leave as a deserter, lad. I will not have that on you, nor on me." Mormont's old eyes glistered. "You will leave as a man honorably released from his vow, by the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, for a cause greater than any the Watch has stood for since the days of the Long Night, my lord," Jon said. His voice was not his. "There are two other things before you go." "Yes, my lord." "The sword." Jon touched Longclaw at his hip. Longclaw was his, with the white wolf on the pommel that Mormont had given him only a fortnight ago. "My lord, this blade is your house's. It is yours. I gave it you. I do not ungive things." Mormont coughed. "It was a sword meant for a king in the end. Take it south. Use it better than my son did." "Yes, my lord." "And the second thing. Maester Aemon." Maester Aemon was already there in the door with Sam's hand under his elbow. Jon did not know how long he had been standing. The old blind face was tilted up a little, as if he could see Jon not with his eyes but with something older, the long, patient attention of a very aged dragon. "Come here, boy," Aemon said. Jon knelt, as he had not knelt for any man in a year. Aemon's hand on his hair was dry and light, very light, as if he were afraid he might weigh it down. "I am a very old man," Aemon said. "I have lived in a stone cell for longer than most men live altogether. I thought I would die without knowing. I thought I was the last. It is a strange thing to be glad and afraid both at once. I am glad, Jon. I am afraid for you. I shall pray for you in the old way and the new, though I believe less now in both than I once did. You are my brother's great-grandson. You are my blood. You are a Targaryen, which is no small burden. Master, listen now. There is a thing my father told me which his father told him and which I have not told any living man since they sent me to the wall. It is not a prophecy. It is a warning. When a Targaryen is born, gods flip a coin. Remember that. Take the coin in your hand, Jon. Clutch it until it bites. Do not let it drop face down. I will try. Try is not enough with that coin. Then I will do more than try, Master." Aemon smiled. There was nothing of sorrow in the smile, only a strange light. "Good, good, ride south. Take the sword. Take the white wolf, the real one, not the hilt one. Take my love to your father. Take my forgiveness to the living of my house." "I will," Jon said. "Now go, before I weep and shame you." Jon kissed the old man's knuckles. He rose. Mormont was already riding. He did not ride south alone. Sam begged to come. Mormont would not have it, but sent him to Old Town with letters that would need to be read by other blind men. Dolorous Ed refused to stay behind and was given to Jon's escort, as if Mormont had only been waiting for him to ask. Q Horan Halfhand arrived 3 days later with a file of rangers who had ridden from the Shadow Tower as fast as their garrons could carry them, and whom Q Horan put under Jon's command without asking Mormont, and whom Mormont approved of with a single nod when he heard. On the morning he rode out, Jon stood for a moment alone at the gate of the long tunnel under the wall. The ice above him was gray-blue and so vast it made even Ghost look small, and Ghost looked enormous. Jon thought of all the men in his life who had called him bastard. He thought of the boy who had run along a gallery at Winterfell, shouting to his father for permission to learn the sword. He thought of Rickon, too young to care who he was, of Bran, who would forgive him anything, of Arya, who would be pleased with him in ways he could not predict, of Robb, who would embrace him and not know what to call him. He thought of Sansa and was afraid. He thought of his father's wife, his uncle's wife. He corrected himself carefully, like a man learning a new word, and of what she would say. He thought of his father. He could not correct that. He could not. Ned Stark was his father, and he would not give the word up for any number of dragons. Ghost pressed against his leg. He set his hand on the wolf's head. He turned his horse south. The wind was at his back. The wall took a long time to become small. It never did, quite. He went on. They rode the King's Road south and kept it, for the most part, because Jon Snow did not yet trust himself to be clever about a thing he had only just learned to name. He was not Aegon the Conqueror. He was not Rhaegar at the Ruby Ford. He was a boy of 17 with a white wolf beside his horse and a Valyrian sword on his hip. And with him rode Qhorin Halfhand, Dolorous Ed, 8 rangers of the Shadow Tower whose names he was learning one by one, and the growing shadow of what it was he had become. At Winterfell they lost a day and gained a country. Robb came out into the courtyard without his cloak. Ned had not yet come back north and would not, for reasons Jon did not yet know but suspected. So it was Robb who opened the gates of Winterfell, and it was Robb who stood with his auburn hair unbound and rein on his shoulders and did not know whether to kneel to his brother or embrace him. Jon dismounted before Robb could decide. He went to him as he had always gone to him, with his hand out. They clasped. They stood a moment with foreheads pressed. Jon smelled the smell of Winterfell in Robb's hair, and he almost sat down in the mud. "Brother," Robb said. "Cousin." "Damn it, Jon." "Brother," Jon said firmly. "The rest is nothing. Brother first." "Brother first," Robb agreed, and there were not any more tears after that between them, because they had never been able to make tears at each other for long. Catelyn Stark met him in the great hall. She had put on the Tully trout brooch and a stiff gray dress, and she had eaten nothing that morning. Jon bowed to her. He bowed lower than he had ever bowed to her in his life, and before she could speak he said, "Lady Stark, I was a cuckoo in your nest. I did not know it. You did not want me to. I did not want to be it. There was not one day of my boyhood you did not keep from your own roof when you could have, and kept under it when you had to, and I never thanked you for the second kind. I thank you for it now." She stared at him. Her hand had risen to her breast at his first word. It stayed there. Her eyes ran. "Jon," she said. The name came out like she was not certain of it. "Jon, your father, my Ned will, he lives," Jon said. "He is injured. He is to be well, I am told. You will go to him. Not I, you first. Take Arya and Sansa with you as soon as the roads are safe. Take Bran when he can ride. It is not, you are not." He took a step closer. He took her hand. He did not hold it long. He did not have the right. He released it. "I am going south, Lady Stark. I am going as my uncle's son. I will not have you called anything I have called you before, except if it please you. I am sorry. I wish I could be sorrier than I can say." Catelyn Stark covered her mouth with her hand. She had been wronged and knew it, and had wronged and now knew it. And she was a mother who had just been told that her husband was alive, and she was a woman who had been afraid of a child for 16 years for the wrong reason. When she let her hand fall, she said the only thing there was to say. "Sit, Jon, eat." He sat. He ate. He had not eaten all day. Robb sat on his left and Catelyn on his right, and Arya, who had been practicing for years not to cry in front of anyone and had finally forgotten the skill, on the bench across from him. Sansa stood in the door and would not come in for a while. Bran, who could not come down on his legs but had been carried, sat at the high table in the chair that had been his father's, and watched his brother with bright, solemn eyes, and would not eat either. Rickon ran in at the end of the second course, saw Jon, saw Ghost, and went to Ghost first, which Jon thought Ghost liked. When the plates had been cleared, Robb stood. He cleared his throat. "Bannermen are riding in," he said. "Great John Umber is a day behind me, the Karstarks, 2 days. Meej Mormont is already here, waiting in the solar. Roose Bolton will come or will not as he pleases, but either way he will come. The Vale has risen, or half of it has. Your uncle Edmure is on the road with the Tullys. The West Lannister lords have not stirred. Lord Tywin has not marched. His daughter's children are alive in the Red Keep, and he will not move while that is true. That is what father writes to me. What he writes to you, only you can say." Jon took out the letter. He had read it so often the folds were soft. He read it again. He said, "Father asks us to bring the bannermen south. All of them we can muster. He asks us to do it in my name. He says he believes the realm will come to me if we give the realm reason not to fear us. We will ride in your name." Robb said. "No," Jon said. The hall went quiet. "We will ride in the name of Robert Baratheon's will," Jon said. "Which, if Reed will give my name, but which also gives the realm a lawful thing it can hold to. I will not march behind a banner no one knows. I will march behind a sealed writ of a king every man in these halls has drunk the health of. When my name is to be given, I will give it, not before." Robb looked at him with new attention. "That is wisdom, brother." "It is fear," Jon said. "But it will serve as wisdom until I have the leisure to do better." Meej Mormont came down to the hall when she heard the laughter from the high table, and she was not much given to laughter herself. But she looked at Jon as if Jon were a man she was considering to marry one of her daughters, which was perhaps the highest compliment Meej Mormont gave. Jon stood and made her a bow that Ned Stark had taught him, and that had never before, in Meej's eyes, been earned by the bow-giver. "Cousin," she said, testing the word, "when my lord of Bear Island comes down off her own rock, is it a cousin she serves or a king?" "Cousin tonight," Jon said. "King when a crown has been set. And where is the crown? On the head of a dead man." "Good answer, lad," said Meej Mormont and sat down beside him. They were 3 days at Winterfell, and in those 3 days Robb's army became Jon's and did not become it, the way a river becomes a lake without ceasing to be a river. The great Jon Umber came in with his 2 sons on the 2nd day, and his voice could be heard a half-league off, shouting at someone about grain. On the 3rd day he stood in the yard with Jon and said, "Boy, king or not king, I've been drunk at your father's table longer than you've had teeth. You show me the paper and I'll ride with you to the wall and back twice. You put a crown on your head before we've sat at a council, and I'll take my axe and go home." "Good," Jon said. "I shall want both of those promises kept in the right order." The great Jon laughed in a way that shook icicles off the mews. They rode south. Eddard Stark had been as good as his word. The gates of Moat Cailin were held by a Frey garrison that looked at Jon's writ, and at Jon's longclaw, and at Ghost with his red eyes and his silence, and opened. The twins could have been a nuisance. They were not. Walder Frey, who was 700 years old and 3/4 crooked, received Jon in a hall strewn with ostentation and mediocrity, and he offered Jon 2 things. First, an alliance for the price of a Stark son's marriage to a Frey daughter. Second, insinuations that if the first were refused, the second might be steel. Jon refused the first. "You have Robb Stark as a guest," he said pleasantly at supper, looking down the table at Walder Frey's oldest living son, who was perhaps 40 and certainly gouty. "You know his worth. You will have noticed he brought 4,000 Northmen over your bridge today. If my cousin betroths, he betroths to a lady of his own house's finding, not his host's. If you wish honors from the crown, I shall give you honors. I shall give you, my lord of the twins, the traditional seat on the small council of the last warden of the Trident. I shall give your son a place in my Kingsguard, Sir Stevron, if he will have it. I shall confirm your holdings. I shall not marry your house into mine. Not this year. Not next. The last Targaryen who took Frey daughters made a mess of them, and I shall do better than my grandfather's father in that as in other things." Walder Frey blinked. Walder Frey laughed. Walder Frey looked at him for a long time. Walder Frey was not a sentimental man. Walder Frey was an accountant with a crown in his head. "You are your father's son, boy." "I am my mother's," Jon said, "but I will take the compliment in any of my father's names you wish." He did not say that, later, Catelyn had asked him to refuse the Freys any marriage, and he had been grateful for her reasons. He had not yet the patience or the age to distinguish what one owes to a woman one has wronged from what one owes to one's own judgment. The answer had been the same, and he would learn later to be careful when those two things agreed. At Riverrun, Edmure Tully opened the gates before the horns had finished sounding. Hoster Tully was too ill to rise. Jon climbed the stairs of Riverrun alone and went to his grandfather's bed. His great-uncle, he corrected himself, and then set the correction aside. He was tired of these corrections. Lord Hoster did not know him by face, but he knew Catelyn's letter, which Catelyn had sent ahead with a ribbon in her own hair tied on it. He took Jon's hand in both of his. He squeezed. His lips moved. Maester Vyman at the bedside bent down and listened. "He says," Vyman said, "Tansy." "My Lord Tully says Tansy." "What does he mean?" "I do not know, my lord. He has said it these 3 days." Jon did not know either. He kissed the old man's forehead and left, and it was only much later that he understood, and by then there was nothing to be done with the understanding. At the Ruby Ford the river was low. Jon crossed it on foot, leading his horse. It was an old custom among the river lords who said that a king who will not get his boots wet does not deserve them dry. Jon had read this somewhere. He had been reading a great deal. He said nothing aloud about rubies. He thought he said nothing aloud about anything. Ghost, at his side, put his paw in the water and growled low at a thing only he could see, and then walked on. On the south bank of the Ruby Ford he met Stannis Baratheon for the first time. It was not quite what Jon had feared. Stannis had brought 10,000 men. Jon had 12. Stannis had stood on the south bank in black and gold with his face like an old tool, sharp and used, and he had waited for Jon to come to him, and had not moved when Jon came. Beside him stood a red priestess whose robe steamed when the mist rose off the water. Jon did not like her and did not trust her, and she looked at him like a woman examining a book for a missing page. Stannis did not kneel. Jon did not ask it. "Lord Stannis," Jon said. "Your Grace," said Stannis tightly. The words came out as if they cost him a tooth. "I have read my brother's will. I have read the depositions your father sent. I have not yet accepted them, but I am here. I will accompany your army to King's Landing. My claim I shall press at such hearing as the realm shall grant me. If the hearing goes against me, I shall serve the realm. I shall not waste Baratheon blood on Stark blood when Lannister blood wants shedding worse. That is my word. It is my whole word." "It is a good word, my lord," Jon said. "I had feared you would make me ask for one half as good. I do not make men ask me for what I owe them. I know." Stannis did not smile. Stannis had not, in the opinion of Westeros, smiled in 14 years, and would not begin for a boy of 17 on the south bank of the Trident. But he inclined his head. It was enough. The red priestess stepped forward. "Azor Ahai," she said. Her voice made the hair on Jon's arms lift. "The king who was promised. The sword of the morning." "My lady," Jon said, and he used the word lady very carefully. "You mistake me. I am none of those things that I know of. If I am any of them, I will be them on a battlefield of my choice, not a river bank of your choosing. If you have come to tell me I am a prophecy, you may tell me in King's Landing after I have seen my father. If you have come to tell Lord Stannis he is a prophecy, you may tell him at the same time. I will hear all your prophecies in one sitting. I will have none of them on this ford." Stannis's mouth moved. It was not a smile. It was the first thing Jon had made him do that was not a frown. Sir Davos Seaworth, behind him, hid his smile in his beard. The Red Priestess bowed. She did not argue. She fell back. They rode together. At Harrenhal, which they had thought to find closed, they found it open. The garrison was a mix of Lannister men and Went retainers, and the Lannister men had woken up, 3 nights before, to find themselves bound hand and foot by the Went retainers, who had had enough of being ruled by foreigners in their ruined hall. They opened the gates for Stannis, for Jon's banners, and for Stannis's ship banners. They came into the great ruin of Harren's hearth, and they slept under a roof whose beams had never been re-raised after the Black Fire. And Jon slept badly, and in the morning Tywin Lannister had moved. He had not moved south, he had moved west. "He has gone home," Edmure said in a voice that was not pleased but was astonished. "He has gone home, your grace. He sent word to us yesterday. It came under seal of the West. He has fallen back to Casterly Rock. He writes that if you will spare his daughter and her children, not their freedom. He says he understands that the children must be set aside, and the queen put to such use as is proper. If you will give them their lives, he will retire from the field and wait for your writs. He writes that he would speak with his son in King's Landing before he makes his final choice." "Jaime." "Yes, your grace. He is in King's Landing, he is." "And the Kingslayer," said Stannis, with that word in his mouth the way men sometimes use a word nobody likes, "is alive and free in the Red Keep this very hour, your grace. I presume your Lord Father has not yet had the leisure to deal with him, given the state of things." "I presume so," Jon said. "I shall have the leisure when I arrive." He rode the last part with a very small guard, because he was tired of armies and wanted for 1 hour to feel the wind. He saw King's Landing across the Blackwater on the evening of the 19th day. It rose out of the eastern light like a scab on the brow of the world. He looked at it as long as he could. He did not want to want it. He did not want to like wanting it. He closed his eyes and let Ghost lean against his leg, and he said softly, "I will go in tomorrow," and he did. They had the gates for him. Ned Stark, who could not stand, had himself carried to the iron gate on a chair, and had the chair set in the arch and waited there. He had a bandage through his ribs and under his arm, that Maester Pycelle's successor. A Myrish woman who called herself Mercy, and had the worst bedside manner and the best hands Ned had ever encountered, had renewed the day before. He had in his hand the sealed copy of the will. On either side of his chair stood Barristan Selmy in white and in grey, a broad-shouldered old steward of the Stark household called Willem, who had kept the keys of Winterfell's inner ward when Ned had been a boy, and was now the last man Ned was willing to let near his daughter's door. Jon dismounted. He put back his hood. He went to the chair. He went to his knees. "Father," he said, and did not bother correcting himself aloud, because this was a matter for a year of practice and not for a gate. "Come here," Ned said. Jon went into his uncle's arms. Neither man spoke for a long while. The men behind them were silent. Ghost sat at Ned's feet and put his head on Ned's knee, and Ned's hand went into the fur without Ned's mind going anywhere near what the hand was doing. Jon felt his uncle's breath against his ear and heard Ned's heart, slow and wrong and alive. "You came. I came. Your mother would have been—" Ned did not finish it. Jon did not ask him to. After a long time Ned said, "Stand, your grace." Jon stood. "Into the city, your grace." Jon went. King's Landing. 20 days after the death of its king and 1 day before the crowning of another, was a city holding its breath. Gold cloaks stood on the walls, more of them sober than Jon had expected, all of them looking at the Stark gray and the Targaryen black that came through the gate, as if they could not decide which to kneel to. In the end most of them bowed their heads, which was sufficient for the day. The throne room was empty. Jon had asked for it so. He had told his father, in the Raven exchange they had managed while Jon was still on the road, that he would not enter the throne room for the first time with 1,000 eyes on him. He would enter it alone with his father and 2 men of his choosing, and he would look at the thing, and he would make up his mind in the silence. He would not permit himself a spectacle he had not yet earned. Ned had understood. Barristan had understood. Ghost had come at his heel. The Iron Throne looked like what it was. It was a pile of swords, made by a man who had not loved comfort to hold up men who should not feel it. It looked worse than Jon had imagined. It also looked, somehow, like less than he had feared. A chair could not be a fate. A chair was a thing one sat in or did not. He walked up the 7 steps slowly. He did not touch the blades. He turned at the top and looked out over the empty hall. "If I sit in this," he said very softly to Ned, who stood at the foot, "I sit in it for the realm, not for a name. Not for my father's blood, either of them. For the realm. Yes, your grace. Stop calling me that here. Call me that out there. Yes, Jon." He sat. The swords did not bite him. He had been careful because he had heard of the biting. He sat as Aegon was said to have sat the first time, upright with his hands on the rests, his cloak gathered behind him, his feet flat. He sat for a count of 300 and then he got up and went down. "Tomorrow," Ned said, "tomorrow. The will to be read in the great sept in the morning, by the most senior septon able to stand, with all the king's banners in the nave, with your lord grandfather Tully's ribbon about your arm, with the Stark direwolf on your shoulder, and the 3-headed dragon as your sigil. Stannis Baratheon to be at your left hand, Meage Mormont to be at your right, the Kingsguard renewing their oaths if they will, any who will not, to be sent to the black cells for the new hand to deal with. The queen to be brought forth in chains, not chains. Your grace. She is not a common thief. She is a queen who conspired against her husband's life and her children's legitimacy. She is the mother of children I will not have killed. Do not put chains on her. Put a scepter by her. Let the Lord see a woman who has done wrong and will answer for it. The chains would make us look like we fear her, as you will." And Jaime, in his cell under Meagher's, he would not yield his sword to Sir Barristan, and Sir Barristan took it off him. "He is bruised, bruised. He lives. The king commanded me not to kill him without hearing him. The king's command has been obeyed. Good. And your father, I mean your cousin Robb, a day behind. He will come up at noon tomorrow with the Northmen. I did not want them in the streets tonight. I did not trust the wine. Good. Father, Ned. Yes, show me where you were hurt." Ned sighed. He turned carefully and lifted the edge of his cloak. A bandage. A red stain that was not getting redder. It was Barrow's blount on the stair. It was not even a good stroke. I was too slow. I am old. I am mostly alive. Will you live? I will live through tomorrow. I will live through a great deal, I think. Mercy says a month to walk without a stick. She says a year to be as I was, and that is perhaps optimistic. You will be hanged. You do not have to. I am going to be 17 in 4 months. I have been south of the neck for less than half of 1 season. I have not set foot in this keep before today. I have no allies. I have not been brought to by you or by Robb. I do not know half the court. I do not trust the other half. If you are not hanged, Ned, I will sit on that chair for a year and give stupid orders, and the realm will call me stupid, and it will be correct. You will be hanged. I am sorry. I know what it cost you last time. I will do my best to make it cost less this time. Your grace, Jon. In here, Jon. Jon, I will be hanged, with 2 conditions. Name them. 1. You will let me go home when the realm is stable, not next year, not the year after, but when it is time. I wish to die at Winterfell. I wish to hear the wolves. I am not a king's hand. I am a man who was my friend's hand. I will be your hand until you are ready. Then I will go. Accepted. 2. You will not send your sisters south of the neck until you are wed. Not Arya, not Sansa. They have seen enough of this city for a lifetime. When you have a queen, they may come to court. not before. They will need a home that is not this one until you have a hearth fire of your own. Accepted. Make it 3. 3. You will teach me, not orders, not writs. Teach me. The small things you have learned the hard way, I will not pretend I have learned them. I will ask questions that make me feel a fool. Tell me the answers anyway. Accepted. Good. Jon put his hand on the old man's shoulder. Ned winced. Jon eased it. Ned did not ask him to take it away. Father, I am very tired, I know, my son. Can I sleep? You can. Where? In the chamber I had prepared for you. Your mother's old rooms. I had them aired. There is a cloak of your lord father's, your of Rhaegar's. There is one I found among the Targaryen things. I did not want you to wear it tomorrow without seeing it first. I thought, if you had a night to make peace with the black, you might tomorrow choose to wear gray. Jon laughed. It was the first laugh he had laughed since the Raven. Gray, father, always gray. Black I will wear 1 hour a day for the dragons. I am mostly a Stark. I intend to die mostly a Stark. Good. They walked together down the length of the throne room. Ned leaned a little on Jon without seeming to. Jon carried a little of his weight without seeming to. Outside, the sun was going down on King's Landing. The red keep's walls took the light and held it and gave it back the color of a woman's mouth. And somewhere a bell began to ring, because the city had learned that bells always worked, whatever one was ringing them for. Above the bells, very high, a raven was flying in from the south. It bore a letter from Dragonstone. The letter was from Stannis Baratheon, who was not at Dragonstone, but had left a secretary there with standing orders to report what flew in. The secretary had a bird of his own. He wrote, "My lord, last night a great ship was seen at the far horizon, flying sails no man knows. It rounded south of the gullet at the 4th hour and went on without hail. The watch on the Dragonmont saw, in the ship's wake, something lift off the deck and pass over the moon and turn back down and go on with the ship. It was larger than any gull. It had a wingspan that could not be measured at that distance, but was not of any bird. It went east and then southeast and then out of our seeing. We do not know whither. I have sent word to Driftmark. I have sent word to Sharp Point. I have not yet sent word to the king. Send word, my lord, quickly, to whom it shall be sent. Your servant, Cressen's apprentice by the fire." The raven dropped into the rookery of the red keep with its message case, still cool from flight. The man who took the message off it was a man Ned had appointed 3 days before. A river lander with no love for the citadel and no friends in any tower, and he brought it not to a maester but directly to Ned. Ned read it sitting in his solar, by lamplight, with his mouth very slightly open. He folded the letter. He got up with difficulty. He went to the door of the chamber where Jon was already asleep with his arm across Ghost's back, and he opened the door a finger's breadth, and he looked at the boy he had raised, and he closed the door without speaking. Let him sleep. He said to the guard, "One more night." He went back to his solar. He sat down. He did not read the letter again. He wrote a reply. He did not sleep that night. Chapter 2. End Chapter 3. The dragon who was promised the coronation was at mid-morning in the great sept of Baelor, and the weather did Jon the favor of being neither triumphant nor dire. There was a high thin cloud, and a wind off the Blackwater that smelled of mud. The bells had been rung at dawn, once for the dead king and once for the living, and the city had woken to both sounds without much surprise, because the city had lived with the whispering for more than a fortnight and would not pretend it had not. They read the will first. The High Septon was old and fat and unwell, so they did not make him read it. They made his most devout, an elderly Septon named Howland, who had the lungs for it, stand in the pulpit beneath the great rose window and read the document through, from the first Robert to the last John, without pause. Howland read it in a voice that did not tremble. He was a reader. Ned had chosen him for it. The court heard that the king of 2 years ago had looked into the face of death and made of his last hour a deed. The court heard the word Targaryen. The court heard the word Rhaegar. The court heard, for the first time in the lives of those under 40, the word legitimate applied in the same sentence as Lyanna Stark. When Howland was done, he did not say Amen. He only stepped down from the pulpit and gave the scroll to the High Septon, who rolled it and sealed it and passed it to a page, and the page carried it up the aisle to the little stone table before the altar. There it lay. Then they brought out the annulment and the marriage paper, and they read those. These were read by a septon of the faith and by a maester of the citadel, between them, with no claim of truth from either of them alone. The citadel man was old Marwyn, who had been passing through and had been asked by Ned to stand for the conclave, and who had agreed so quickly that Ned had wondered whether Marwyn did not owe the agreement to Maester Aemon's old name. Marwyn read the annulment. The septon read the marriage oath. When the 2 documents were done, Marwyn said, in a voice that filled the sept, "I attest, for my brothers of the conclave who will review these parchments in Oldtown, that to the best of my knowledge these are the hands and seals of the High Septon Maynard of the year of the false spring, and of the witnesses to the right on the Isle of Faces, and of the sister Lyanna of Stark who bore a child under that rite. I attest my knowledge. I do not attest my opinion. My opinion is not mine to give here. It was enough. The High Septon took up the crown. It was not Aegon's crown. It was not Robert's. Jon had asked for a new one to be made, and a goldsmith at the Street of Steel had made it in a week. A plain band of iron with 7 small points, each set with a drop of garnet for the 7 sept candles, and a circlet of black within the iron for the old gods. It was the ugliest crown the sept had seen in a century. Jon loved it for its ugliness. He loved it for its weight. He loved it because it was not a thing that had belonged to anyone yet. He knelt before the High Septon. He had chosen to kneel. He had argued the night before with his father and with Maester Marwyn, and with Stannis over whether a Targaryen king ought to kneel in a sept, and he had said, "I shall kneel in the sept today, and I shall ride to the Godswood the week after, and I shall sit in my own throne room all the rest of the year, and the man who finds fault with the first is welcome to try the last." The High Septon spoke the words. The 7 names of the gods went up like small birds into the vault. The iron came down on Jon's head. "Rise," the High Septon said. "Ye Harrys, 3rd of that name, not ye Harrys," Jon had said 2 nights before, and he said it now again in his head while the High Septon spoke the wrong name. "Not Aegon, not Rhaegar, not Daeron, not any of them. I am Jon Targaryen. I was Jon Snow. I shall be Jon if it please the old gods and the new, and if it do not please them, I shall be a king who displeases his gods and try to be that with grace. Jon of the house Targaryen, 1st of that name, king of the Andals and the first men, lord of the 7 kingdoms, protector of the realm." He had said it all aloud in the sept 2 nights before, rehearsing, until Ned had laughed and said, "You will forget half of them on the day," and he had. When he rose as King Jon. The city, which had expected something foreign, got something it could almost forgive. In the days that followed, he did not leave the Red Keep except for one walk in the Godswood. He had said he would, and he did. He walked to the heart tree alone, but for Ghost, and he knelt on the moss, and he did not say anything to the face in the weirwood. He only touched its bark with both hands. The bark was warm. He took that to mean the old gods had not turned from him. He stayed a quarter of an hour and got up and went back to his duties with a mud stain on his knee that Ned would not let him wipe. The trials began on the 4th day. Cersei was first. She came into the throne room in her own blue gown without chains. She had been made to walk, not ride, from the Tower of the Hand. The streets had been cleared, and she had been spared both stones and cheers. She stood at the foot of the throne and would not kneel. Queen Dowager. Jon said, for that was the title Ned had advised, "Do you contest the terms of my lord father's will?" "I do not stand in a court that reads my husband's lies to me," Cersei said. "I stand in no court at all. You stand. You will therefore hear." The charges were read. Conspiracy against the king's life, conspiracy against the succession, conspiracy against the hand, unlawful issue brought before the realm as royal issue. Jaime Lannister's name was read at her side, and Jaime's name was passed quickly over. For himself, Jaime lay in the black cells and would be heard when a day was set for him. Cersei did not speak in her defense. When asked whether she had anything to say, she said, "Do as you must. I am a lion. I shall roar when the knife is in." Jon looked at her for a long time. "I am not." He said, "Going to kill your children, whatever their parentage, they are children." Something went through Cersei that was not a softening and yet was also not what it had been before. "I am not," Jon went on, "going to kill you, Cersei Lannister. Then you are a fool. Perhaps. Hear the sentence and judge me after. You are this day stripped of the style of queen. You are attainted. Your issue are set aside, but shall keep their lives and their names as they choose to be called by. Joffrey Hill, Miachella Hill, Tommen Hill, after the fashion of the West if they so desire, or whatever other name they take up, so long as the name be not Baratheon, and not Lannister joined to a royal article. They are to be raised in the faith, under the guardianship of a septa of my choosing, to the age of majority. Upon majority each may choose a seat at the court of whatever lord will have them, a position in the faith, a place in the watch. They will not inherit, they will not be made to die, they will live. As for yourself, my lady, you will have in the faith's custody a cell at the mother house of Crane's Crossing, which my father tells me has been the place of great queens before. You will not be put to the silence. You will have a window. You will be allowed to write to Casterly Rock once a month, under the supervision of the Mother Superior. You will not see your children until they have reached majority. That is for their sake as well as yours. Should you attempt from your window or from your correspondence to unseat me or to harm my realm, you will be made to answer for it, and the answer will be a hard one. Do you understand, my lady?" She stared at him. "You understand, my lady?" "I understand, your grace." The words were stones. They landed. "You understand one thing more." "What, your grace?" "I loved your husband too. He was my foster father's brother in the way that things are in this country. I do not kill what he loved. He loved you once. I will not undo what he loved by killing you. Do not mistake my mercy. It is not mercy to the lion. It is mercy to a dead man." Cersei's eyes shone. She did not weep. She did not look down. Jon saw in her, for one heartbeat, the girl who had worn a crown of golden wire in a hall at Casterly Rock and had been told at 7 by a woods witch that she would be queen. He did not know that part of her story. He would learn it years later from Tyrion. "Take her," Jon said. "Let the faith have her." They took her. Jaime was harder. Jaime was brought up in Northmen's irons. Ned had refused to let the Lannister colors of the irons be seen in the throne room, and Jaime walked the length of the hall as if he had walked the length of it 100 times. He had. He stopped before the steps of the throne and looked up. "Lord Commander," he said, "I yield my sword to the lawful king." "Your sword was already in the armory, Sir Jaime." "I yield my oath then. I am done with the white." "Your oath is not yours to yield. It was yours to break, and you did." Jaime's face did not change. Jon did not speak for a long time. He had been thinking about this for 2 nights. "You pushed a child out of a tower," he said at last. "Yes. You held a king down while another man stabbed him. Yes. You fathered children by your sister and gave them for my uncle to raise as his own. Yes. You cannot give those back. I cannot take them from you. You are what you have done. Hear me now. The Kingsguard Sir Jaime Lannister is removed from the order, stripped of the white, stripped of his knighthood. Jaime Lannister is to be sent to the Wall. The Wall is grown in need of swords, and the realm in need of being rid of yours. You will take the black. You will never go south of the neck again on pain of death. If you try to escape, you will be hunted and killed. If you try to take up command, you will be thrown in an ice cell until you die of exposure. If you serve as a ranger, you will be remembered by your brothers. If you serve well, you will, in 40 years, die in the snow with a scrap of honor. That is what is left you. Do you accept? I accept, your grace. A moment. One boon. Name it. Let me say goodbye to my sister. You have already said it. I did not know it was the last. You knew. Every time Jaime, who had been looking up the steps, now looked down at his own wrists. Your grace, he said very softly. The boy I pushed. Bran, he lives. He is the prince of my northern court. He is riding again. He is going to be a man whose legs do not work and whose mind does work better than yours. You will never meet him. You will think of him. Yes, your grace. Take him to the Wall, Jon said. Let him begin his journey today. Deliver him to the Lord Commander's custody in good faith. Let him wear the black he earns and no other. They took him. On the 7th day, the great ship that the Dragonstone secretary had seen at the horizon was seen again, closer. It was reported at Driftmark. It was reported at Sharp Point. It was reported at Gulltown, where its sails were briefly seen and not seen again. What was seen from the ship was argued about by fishermen. Men said dragon, other men said large crane, other men said the men who said dragon had been drinking since Balor's day. Maester Mercy, who did not smile easily, smiled at the reports. Ned did not. On the 9th day, Stannis Baratheon asked a private audience with the king. Jon granted it. Your grace, Stannis said without sitting. The reading of the will has been completed. The Septons have pronounced its validity. The Citadel has sent word by Raven that Maester Aemon at Castle Black has written, under his own hand, to affirm the truth of the annulment. For he was a boy of 5 when his father's uncle told him of it and remembered it well. The faith is satisfied. The Citadel is satisfied. My Storm Lords are satisfied. Lord Tywin has drawn back his banners and is waiting in the west for what the realm decides. I am not satisfied. No, Jon said. I did not think you would be. I have come to tell you so to your face and to ask your leave to retire from the court. Jon stood up from his chair. He came down the dais. He walked to Stannis. He did not take his arm. He stood near him. Lord Stannis, he said, hear me out. Then speak again. Stannis waited. You have a grievance, Jon said. It is a grievance I cannot answer with any speech I have. Your brother was my uncle. He was, to me, for most of my life, a name I thought I had no part in. I did not ask to be his heir. I did not ask to be my father's heir. I did not ask for a throne. I have one. I do not intend to give it up, because to give it up now would be to make the will a lie, and my father's death a waste, and my uncle's betrayal a small thing, and the realm's next year a massacre. But this I offer you, Stannis Baratheon. I offer you Storm's End. I offer you Dragonstone. I offer you the wardenship of the Narrow Sea. I offer, if you and your lady daughter would have it, a friendship between your Shireen and my cousin Sansa, who is nearer her age than any lady in the south, and who has a temper that will not eat at Shireen's own. And later, if my Lord Stannis will stand a Stark ward at Storm's End. I shall foster my cousin Bran there, for Bran cannot walk as other boys do, but he can read, and Stannis keeps a library worth sending a mind to, and I should like any Baratheon who inherits Storm's End after your daughter to inherit a Stark boy who grew up beside her. If you will not have the marriage, none is pressed. If you will not have Storm's End, I shall send you no other man. It shall wait. You are the Lord of Dragonstone. I do not propose to take Dragonstone off you. I propose to add. I propose to put the Narrow Sea under a man who will keep it. I propose a hand to sit beside me, not this year, for my father is hand this year, but next year and the year after. My father will be hand until he goes home. You will be hand, Stannis, if you will. There is no other man in this kingdom who will tell me I am wrong as quickly as you will, and that is what I need. Stannis did not speak for a long time. When he spoke, he said, I need to think on this, your grace. Think. I shall not decide for a fortnight, a fortnight. I shall not accept the marriage without Shireen's willing word. She is 11, she does not know Sansa. I shall not do to my daughter what, nor would I ask it. Let them correspond. Let them meet when they will. And the Lady Melisandre, JON did not quite sigh. She is your guest, not mine. She is not welcome in the keep at this hour. I do not trust her. I will ask no man to send his friends away. I ask only that she is not in my council chamber. If she wishes to be heard, she may send a letter. I shall read it. I shall not answer it. Acceptable, good. Stannis turned. He was at the door when he said over his shoulder, Your Grace, my lord. I did love my brother at the end. I had forgotten how to say it. I do not know yet how I shall love you if I shall. I am telling you now I have decided to try. That is more than I had hoped for, my lord. Stannis went out. On the 11th day, the second raven from Dragonstone brought a thing that could not be misread. A ship had been struck at anchor off Driftmark. Not sunk, struck. A hole in the mast, a burning along the gunwales, a shape in the air that had gone by once, circled and gone again. 3 men had died. The ship's master had said in tears, It was a dragon, my lord, it was a dragon. It was silver and it was small and it was a dragon. Ned brought the report in to JON himself. JON read it through twice. He folded it. He set it on his desk. He said, My father. What is the size of Dany's dragons by your best guess? Your aunt, Ned said. Not Dany. Aunt Dany, your grace. JON's mouth turned up a little. My aunt. The reports, what we have of them, suggest they are the size of large dogs. Sir Jorah Mormont's letters to Varys, which Varys has handed me under the new terms of his continued breathing, say the black is the largest. They grew fast when they first hatched. They have grown slower since. If the one that struck the ship was the silver, it may have been larger than the reports indicate, or it may have been one of the other 2 which were smaller, or it may have been, as the fishermen say, a large crane. It was not a large crane. No. How many days until she makes the gullet at her present course? 3, perhaps 4. Her ship is slow, she has the wind against her in the narrow sea. Send word to her, my lord. Send word to her, Ned. A raven too, how do we reach her? We do not easily. The fleet is not under flag. It is an old Braavosi vessel, we think, out of Volantes, acquired in Meereen. Aegon knows how she found it. The course they have taken, we have only sightings. Then find her. Send a galley under flag of truce toward the last sighting. Send a second to Driftmark. Give them the letter I shall write tonight, as you command. And my father, if she lands with 3 dragons on Dragonstone before we have had the letter to her, we will not be the first people to know. Stannis will. I want you to go to Stannis tonight, Ned, tonight. Tell him what has been seen. Do not hide any of it. Tell him that the letter I shall write my aunt will go to her under the king's seal, not under the Crownland's lord's seal. But tell him also that if she comes to Dragonstone, she will be his guest first, and that he is to treat her as a daughter of the last king who sat this chair. For that is what she is, and that is all she is until she has spoken to me. Tell him I trust him. He will not like it. He will like it more than the alternative, which is that I go to Dragonstone myself. Ned looked at him. Do not do that, not yet. I will not yet. When I have made her want to meet me. How will you do that? I will send her our mother's letter. Ned went very still. John Howland Reed brought a letter from my mother for me. It was folded inside the marriage oath. He did not show it to you. He did not show it to me for a fortnight. I have read it 100 times. It is mostly for me, some of it is not. Some of it is a thing a sister writes to a sister, a thing my mother wrote for her good sister, not knowing if her good sister would ever live to read it. She wrote it the day after Rhaegar rode north. She was not yet with child. She was 19 years old. She wrote it with her hand shaking, for she was writing it to Rhaegar's first wife, whom she had never met, to tell Lyanna Martell that she was not what men would say she was, that she had not stolen Rhaegar, that she did not wish Lyanna ill, and that if the realm ever let them meet, she would do Lyanna the honor of telling her so to her face. Lyanna is dead, so is my mother. The letter was folded into a greater paper and went north with my Aunt Lyanna, and I did not see it. Howland kept it. I have it now. I have not shown it to any person. I am going to send it to Dany. Why? Because it is the only thing I have to give her that is from a Targaryen woman who is not like her family. I will write to her on my own account. I will tell her I am her brother's son. I will tell her I have her blood. I will tell her I wish her no harm. I will tell her Westeros is to be her home, if she will have it so. But the thing that will make her open my letter twice, Ned, is my mother's hand. Because my mother, in her hand, apologized for a thing she had not done, to a woman she never met, who had every reason to hate her. My Aunt Dany has been hated her whole life by men who think she is the scourge of Westeros. She has hated back. She will see in that letter that there was once a time when the people in her line knew how to ask forgiveness. I cannot ask her forgiveness. I can show her that it was once possible in her family for a woman to ask a woman's forgiveness. It may be enough to make her come to me in peace. And if it is not, then it is not, Ned. Then I have 3 dragons at Dragonstone. Then I pray the old gods that my cousin Stannis, whom I have just bought with Storm's End, remembers that the sea is his. Then we fight. I do not want to fight. I do not think I will have to fight. I think if she comes and I do this, we will meet. And then, Jon said, I do not know. Then I have a queen, if she will be a queen, who is also my aunt. Then I have a niece and nephew with dragons to ride at my back. Then we make a court of a kind no one has seen in 300 years. Then, if the old gods love us and the new are not angry, we make ourselves ready for the only thing that matters. The thing my Uncle Benjen did not come back from. The thing the Lord Commander Mormont has been writing me about since my father's raven went north. The thing the Red Priestess would not shut up about on the Trident. The thing the Weirwood would have whispered to me in the Godswood if I had stayed another quarter of an hour. The others. And if I am to be the king who meets them, Ned, I would rather meet them with my aunt's dragons than without. Ned took a long breath. He let it out. He did not like it. He did not argue further. He was a man who, in his age, had learned to choose his arguments. I will go to Stannis tonight. He said, Thank you, Father. Draft the letter to your aunt. I will read it before you seal it. Not before. Tonight I want it sealed at my own hand. In the morning, if you wish to see the copy, I shall give you the copy. Ned considered. Then he smiled, a very tired Stark smile, and said, Draft it, Your Grace. Sign it, seal it, send it. Yes, Father. Ned left. Jon sat a long while at his desk. He took up the letter his mother had written. He read it through. He sat back. He took a sheet of parchment and he wrote in his own hand a letter to his Aunt Daenerys Targaryen. He wrote it 3 times. The first draft he burned, the second he burned. The third he copied out clean, folded it carefully, tied it with a ribbon of black, and set it upon his mother's letter and put both in a leather case. He sealed the case with the 3-headed dragon in red wax, the first time in his life he had set that seal to anything. In the morning he gave it to Ned, who gave it to a galley captain, who gave it to the wind. On the 14th day, Stannis came back and bent the knee. He did it in the throne room before the court with his daughter at his side, without ceremony and without tears. He knelt on one knee. He said, Your Grace, I have had my fortnight. I have not quite the crown, you have quite the crown. I shall be your hand when your lord father goes home. I shall be your sword in the narrow sea until then. I shall be your Stannies until I am not. I accept the storm's end you have offered me. I accept, for my daughter with her consent, a Stark ward at Storm's End in Bran Stark when his health will bear the journey. And I accept the correspondence between Shireen and the Lady Sansa, who Shireen has said she would like to know. Shireen's condition is that no one ask her to love. She will love or she will not. Accepted, Lord Stannies. Stannies rose. He looked at Jon a moment. Then very dryly he said, Your Grace, I have not been a man to bend to much. I hope you will remember that when next I bend. My lord, Jon said, you will bend less than most men I have met. I know it. I shall remember. Stannies nodded once and went. Ned, behind the throne, let out the breath he had been holding since the 4th day. On the 17th day the raven came from Dragonstone. It was the reply. Daenerys Stormborn of the house Targaryen, 3rd of her name, mother of dragons, queen across the sea, had read her nephew's letter and her good sister's letter, and she had not set fire to either. She had set course for Driftmark. She asked safe conduct. She asked, at Stannis Baratheon's insistence, to come ashore upon a stone in the gullet called Driftmark's Rock, where no army could be laid in ambush. She asked her 2 advisers, a eunuch she named, but Jon did not know, and a knight whose name Jon did know, to be with her. She asked to see her nephew alone in the presence of 3 dragons and 1 wolf. She asked no other condition. Ned brought the letter to Jon. Jon read it. He set it down. He said, Father, yes, your grace. Get me a cloak, a grey one. I am going to Driftmark. Tell Meage Mormont. Tell Robb. Tell Stannies. Tell Ghost I leave in the morning. Yes, your grace and father. Yes, send a raven to Castle Black. Tell them whatever they are saying about the others, I shall come as quickly as I can. Ask them how long they can hold. Ask them what they need that I can send. Ask the Lord Commander if my brother, my cousin Jaime Lannister, has arrived, and whether he is a man who can be put on a wall in a crisis. I did not mean to ask that until spring. Spring may not wait for me. I shall write tonight. Thank you, Father. Go to sleep. It has been a long day for both of us. Ned did not go to sleep. Nor did Jon. Nor, in her window at the mother house of Crane's Crossing, did Cersei Lannister, who had been told the terms of her sentence and had not yet found a way to be a lion in them. Nor, in his cell in Meagher's, did Varys, who had in his shoe a small piece of glass and in his mind a long private list. Nor at the wall, where the night was beginning its 12th hour, though it was not yet supper in the capital, did Jeor Mormont, who had had a report from Q Horan Halfhand's men at the Fist of the First Men, which he was at that very moment writing into a letter that would go south with the morning's raven. Nor, on the deck of the ship that had come from Meereen, with the silver dragon coiled on her shoulder, did Daenerys Targaryen sleep. She stood on the prow in the wind with her hair blown back, and she watched the coast of Westeros come up out of the dark. And she read, for the 4th time that night, a letter in a woman's hand that had been dead 20 years, and she wept, and she did not understand the tears. And she kept reading. Chapter 3, end Chapter 4. Ice and fire Driftmark's Rock lay half a mile off the south shore of the island, a bare basalt tooth that showed its head at low tide and its shoulders at high. They had rigged a landing stair from an old galley's gangplank and set a brazier at the top, and stood off the rock in 3 longboats, 1 Stark, 1 Baratheon, and 1 of the Kingsguard in white. The sea was pewter that morning. The wind came from nowhere and went everywhere. Gulls kept off by a mile. Jon waited on the rock with Ghost and with Sir Barristan 6 paces behind him. He wore grey. His crown was in a case in the longboat. He had said, last night on the deck of the Sea Bitch, that he would not put it on until his aunt had seen his face. Daenerys Targaryen came out of the mist. She came in a single ship's boat, rowed by 2 men he did not know. A third stood in the prow, a knight in middle age with a square face and a gold and black surcoat fresh from a sea chest. Sir Jorah Mormont. Jon's eyes marked him. Jon's eyes did not stay. In the stern, small, straight, with both hands on the oars, stops as if she did not want to be holding them, sat a woman a little older than he was, with pale hair, and a thinness to her face that had been hunger and salt and would be beauty when it was rested. And on her shoulder, a silver-white serpentine dragon the size of a large falcon. The dragon's eyes were cream and brass. They had noticed Ghost already. She stepped off the boat before Jorah could hand her down. She walked up the stair in a plain Valentine robe and bare feet. The dragon flexed and unflexed its wings, finding balance. Two more dragons came over the water on their own. One was black with red scales along the spine. One was green bronze with copper bands on the wings. They were the size of dogs. They flew as birds fly that have only just learned to fly, with effort, with wing beats, with little corrections in the tail. They landed on the rock 10 paces behind her because she had told them to, and they growled at Ghost, and Ghost did not growl back. "Jon," she said, "Deaneries." "Aunt." A tiny smile. "Nephew." "Aunt." They looked at each other a long moment. She was smaller than he had thought. Her eyes were Targaryen eyes, purple in the mist, and his were not. His were gray, and he saw her see it, and he saw her let it pass. "You sent me my mother's letter," she said. "I did." "Was that fair?" "No, no," she did not quite smile. "I read it 7 times. I have it folded in my shirt. I will tell you something. Tell me. I have hated Lyanna Martell's name all my life. My brother told me she had bewitched Rhaegar. My brother told me she had made a weak man weaker. My brother told me when we lay in the gutter in Mur in the winter of my 8th year that if Lyanna had been a better wife, Rhaegar would have won the trident and our mother would have lived. I believed him. I have believed him for 15 years. And now my brother is dead. I killed him. Or made his death. I will not pretend otherwise. And now I am reading a letter written by your mother in which your mother asks Lyanna Martell's forgiveness before she had need of it, and I do not know what I am. I am ashamed. I am tired. I am not a girl anymore. I have not been for some while. I am a queen, Jon Targaryen. You are, across the sea, and you are a king, Jon Targaryen, in Westeros. I am. By a writ, by the blood of Robert Baratheon, by the blood of my father, your brother, by the acceptance of the realm. By my own willingness to bear it, by 4 of those, not 1, not less. You are 17. I am. I do not know yet what I am at 17. I know what I am not. I am not a man who wishes to fight my own blood for a chair. I am also not a man who will give up a chair I have been given, not for any coin a claim can pay. I would like to talk about the chair, Aunt. I would like to talk about the dragons. I would like to talk, at last, about the wall. The wall. Have you heard what stands beyond it? I have heard stories. The stories are true, she did not answer. I will make a bargain with you, Jon said after some silence. Here on this rock, while our advisors watch from their longboats and cannot hear us, I will make it without my father or your knight. I ask you to do the same. What we agree, we agree. What we tell them after. Does that suit you? It suits me. Then hear me. I do not offer you a crown that one I have. I offer you my realm to be your home. I offer you a seat at the head of the room when we are in the room. I offer you marriage, Aunt, because it is the thing our house did when there was no better thing, and because our house has not done better since, and because I believe, it will give the realm peace. I am clumsy. I am telling you this badly. I have written it out 6 times and not one of the drafts was as clean as a clean dagger, and I have thrown them all. I will say it last in the open. Will you be queen with me, and not above me and not below me, and will you bring your dragons, and will you bend them with me against the dead? Daenerys Targaryen looked at him for a long time. You do not ask, will you love me? No, how could I? You have not known me an hour. nor you I. Yes. And if I come to Westeros and I do not love you and you do not love me, then we shall be the second kindest pair of sovereigns the country has ever had. And my cousin Sansa, who has a tongue like an embroidery needle when she wishes it, will put us to shame in our own court the first time we fall asleep at a banquet. I do not ask you to love me. I do not ask you even to trust me today. I ask you to come to Dragonstone tonight and to take your own castle and to be my aunt in the eyes of the realm and to be my ally in the thing that comes. The love can find us. It finds most people eventually. It may not find us. I will not punish us for that, nor punish you for it, nor, I think, punish myself. You are strange, Jon. I am told. You are also not a fool. I try. My brother would have loved this rock. He would have loved that he stood on it to speak of marrying his niece. He would have thought it was a song. It is not a song, no, a song is a story that has an ending. This is not yet a story. No, the silver dragon on her shoulder shifted. It lowered its head. It looked at Jon. It made a sound like a low kettle. Jon did not flinch. He did not reach. He had been warned against reaching. He only looked into the little cream and brass eyes and he said softly, "Hello, cousin." The dragon cocked its head. "She is Viserion," Dany said. "Viserion. I named them in my grief. I was not wise. You were 20 and you had a dead husband and 3 eggs. I was 17 and I had a raven. You do not need to apologize for names that you gave at the start. Perhaps not. You wish to ride her. Gods, no." He laughed. He had not laughed much in a month. The laugh was like a rusted door. "Not today. I wish to be her friend. I have never been a friend to any dragon. I do not yet know how to be a friend to any dragon. I would rather not begin by being a burden on the smallest. She is the smallest and the prettiest. Do not say that to Drogon. I will not. Or to Regal. Regal is vain. I will not." They spoke for a while as persons who have discovered against their own expectation that they like one another. She told him in little of Drogo and of the pyre. She did not tell him all of it. He did not press. He told her in little of the boy he had been at Winterfell. He did not tell her all of it. She did not press. She asked him about Ned. She asked him about Benjen. She asked him, rather carefully, about the Red Priestess on Stannis' boat, and he answered that he did not trust the woman and would be glad to hear what Dany thought. She asked about the wall. He told her about the wall. He told her the letter that had come from Jeor Mormont the day before. That Benjen's men, what was left of them, had come down from the fist of the first men on 8 ponies out of 100, and 2 of the 8 had been whites before the fires on the wall had taken them, and that the Lord Commander was retreating to Castle Black, and that he had perhaps 3 weeks, perhaps 6, before the thing he had seen once in his youth came knocking in a different shape. She listened. She did not interrupt. When he was done she said, "I will come, Aunt. I will come to Dragonstone. I will come with my dragons. I will take the castle and Lord Stannis, whom you have made my castellan. A gesture I do not entirely forgive, but one I understand will be my good host there. I will meet your father. I will meet your sisters. I will meet your sons of Winterfell. I will not marry you this year. I may marry you next year if I find I like you and you me. I will not be a queen above you, nor below you, nor beside you against the wishes of my own blood. I will be your ally. I will be your aunt. I will be your possible wife. I will take the dragons north, Jon Targaryen. Whatever else you and I are and are not, the dragons are yours to use, because the thing at the wall is my inheritance as much as yours, and I will not let it take mine. Aunt. I will also require to be seen. I have been unseen a long time. You will be seen, and fed. You will be fed. And my knight, who is a traitor and my friend and has earned both, shall be neither banished nor honored until I have decided which shall please me more. Agreed. And my eunuch, I know of your eunuch. I know he is not Varys. I have not killed Varys, though I have been tempted. Your man may advise mine. My man will not dictate to yours. Agreed. Then come, Aunt, come to Dragonstone, come to King's Landing, then come with me to the wall, to the wall, to the end of the world, to the end of the world, she said. She put out her hand. He took it. Her hand was smaller than his and cold. They shook once, very briefly, like merchants. Then she laughed, out of nothing, and he laughed, out of nothing, and Viserion flickered her wings, startled and ghost behind Jon, gave a low woof and lay down on the rock with his muzzle on his paws as if deciding to take the meeting for a nap. They sent up no banners. They lit no signal fires. They walked down the stair side by side and they got into Jon's longboat, and they went together to Dragonstone, where Stannis Baratheon was waiting on the shingle with his daughter in a wool cloak too large for her and his hand's chain in his fist, and a look on his face that might, at the right angle, have been mistaken for dignified pleasure. It was a strange court that summer. The capital learned to see the daily sight, along the parapets of the Red Keep, of a slender woman in Targaryen black walking beside a young man in stark gray, and of a small silver dragon sleeping on the battlements like a cat, and of a white wolf that followed both of them. The capital learned, too, that the young man did not yet call the woman his queen but only his aunt, and that the woman did not yet call the young man her husband but only her nephew, and that the court ran all the same. Small council met daily. Ned on the king's right, Stannis on the king's left. Renly, restored to the small council after a private conversation Jon had with him on a balcony overlooking the drowned dragon pit. A conversation in which Jon told Renly that the Tyrells were welcome at court at the cost of Lora's taking a white cloak, and Renly, who loved Lora's more than honors, did not quite weep. Renly on the small council as master of laws, where his gift for the letter of a thing proved surprising. Tyrion Lannister, released from the Vale by Lysa Arryn on the understanding that Lysa would not be asked to kneel to any man ever again, on the small council as master of coin, where he was, as he had always been, terribly good. Varys remained, leashed, on the condition that he communicated all little birds through Ned, and wrote no letter he had not first copied to the king. Varys found the condition onerous. Varys obeyed. Pycelle was replaced with Marwyn. Marwyn did not mind. Mercy, the Myrish healer, became the keeper of the king's wound and of Ned's wound and, eventually, of Dany's too. Dany, at 20, had 3 unhealed wounds of her own, 2 of which no one but Mercy had been allowed to see. Dany began to sleep in that summer for 5 hours at a stretch. She wept less. Her voice, which had been high with practice, began to settle to something lower and more her own. They were married after the war. We may say that now, though they did not yet say it then, after the wall, after the ice, after the fire, for the summer was short. On the morning of the 34th day since Jon's coronation, a raven came in from Castle Black with a single sentence. "They have come." Jon read it at breakfast. He set the scroll down. "Aunt," he said, "saddle the dragons, Jon, saddle them. I am sorry. We had thought 6 weeks. We have 2. I am going north. I am going now. I need you at my side. I need you at my side with the black and the green. I need you to fly ahead and drop fire on the dead before the living get to them. I need Stannis at my side with a sword. I need my father in this chair. I need my cousin Robb holding the Kingsroad. I need Tyrion holding the coin. I need Varys holding his tongue. I need Mercy to come with us and bring every wildfire apothecary in this city. Say you will." "I will." They left that afternoon. The ride north was the fastest ride of a crown in living memory. They rode in a relay of fresh horses set at each holdfast along the Kingsroad. Ned had ordered the relays without telling the king, a week before, because Ned had known. They made Moat Cailin on the 6th day. They made Winterfell on the 9th. Robb met them at the gate with Greywind at his side and a new grey cloak that matched Jon's, and Greywind and Ghost touched noses, and Robb and Jon touched foreheads, and Dany, who had been looking at the castle with something between wonder and envy since the lines of the grey walls had shown on the horizon, dismounted from the horse that Viserion had been flying alongside of, and went to Catelyn Stark and curtsied. "Lady Stark," Dany said, "Your Grace." "You are a mother." "I am." "Then I am in your house. I ask your roof." "You have it," said Catelyn in a voice that had not been used in that way in a long time, "Your Grace." They rested one night. On the 10th day they rode for the wall. The dragons flew. Jon rode. Dany rode. Viserion rode on her shoulder like a cat. Drogon and Rhaegal flew, sometimes beside them, sometimes a mile ahead. The land was grey and thin. The wind was from the north, always from the north. By the 14th day they could see the wall. They did not see the army. The army had come, but it had not come in pieces, and it had not come in rows. It had come as a tide that smelled of old copper and old wet. It had come up the haunted forest by 3 separate runnels, and the 3 had not rejoined yet. And the whites were a crust upon the front of the tide, and the others were the tide itself. And when the watchers on the wall saw the first line walking up out of the trees, they had sent their raven. And then they had stopped being able to send anything, because the birds above the wall would not fly north by then. Jeor Mormont met them at the south gate of Castle Black with a face that had not slept. "Your Grace, Lord Commander. I have 912 men on the wall. I had 1,100 a fortnight ago. Of the 900, perhaps 400 are of the watch, the rest are new men. Wildlings come south on an offered peace, southern volunteers, priests of the Red God. Yes, we took the priests, and they have proved useful. Though I should have died rather than say so last year, and one old Dornishman with a spear. We have oil, we have pitch, we have arrows for 7 days at the present rate. We have 3 trebuchets, we had 6. We have giants, Your Grace. Giants came south with the wildlings, 6 of them. I did not think I would live to see. The giants are the reason we are still standing. We have not 100 ounces of dragonglass. I brought 2 tons, Jon said. Mormont looked at him. 2 tons. I had them mined off the Dragonmont. My aunt called her mountain for them when she came ashore. Stannis's men dug them. We made arrowheads of them on the march. We made spearheads. We made daggers. 2 tons, Lord Commander. It is in the last 3 wagons. Put it to use. Mormont looked for a moment as if he were going to weep. He did not. Your dragons, he said. Yes. They will fly above the wall. They will fly wherever my aunt tells them to fly. My aunt tells me she will tell them to fly against the dead. Is that acceptable, Lord Commander? It is acceptable, Your Grace. Then let us talk about arrangements. They talked. They fought for 3 days. It is not for this record to tell of the battle as a chronicler would tell it. Let it be said that the first night the dead came up to the wall and did not climb it. That the second night they climbed the wall at 3 places, and at each of the 3 a giant held them for an hour, and in the second hour the dragons came. That on the second night Daenerys Targaryen, on the back of a dragon whose back she could barely keep, with her knees gripped around the great hot shoulders of Drogon, burned a field of 3,000 whites in one pass, and a field of 4,000 in a second, and did not see the other who rose up behind her, until Viserion, her smaller daughter cousin child, threw herself between her mother and the ice sword, and took the ice sword through the left wing, and did not die, but did not fly again that year. Let it be said that Rhaegal went at the chief of the others like a raven on a rat, and took off the thing's head, and that the thing's head did not burn, and went on calling orders in a voice that was not a voice, until Jon Targaryen, on foot at the top of the wall with Longclaw in his hand, came down the long stair of the gate on a pulley and split the thing's skull with a blade the color of mist, and it fell into powder, and the dead fell down in their thousands. Let it be said that Ghost, Jon's own, fought beside Jon from dusk of the second day to dawn of the third, and that Grey Wind, whom Robb had sent north with 100 Stark men though Jon had asked him not to, killed a thing in its armor of ice by running up its back and closing his jaws on the place where its neck ought to have been. Let it be said that Stannis Baratheon, afoot, with a flaming sword that he had stopped being ashamed of, broke 3 shield walls and lost 2 teeth. That Tormund Giantsbane and 3 of his sons killed more whites than any other 5 men in the watch. That Meage Mormont died with her axe in her hand and a dead other at her feet, and that no Mormont would ever afterward tell the story without crying. That Ser Jorah Mormont, her nephew by her brother the Lord Commander, who had come north with Daenerys for this purpose alone, died 2 hours before her, and died telling a laughing Tormund he was sorry he had not been born wildling. Let it be said that they held the wall. On the 4th morning the sun came up over the haunted forest on a field of powder and ice water and melting men. The others had gone. The whites that were left had stopped walking. The dead were dead. The living were fewer. The wall was gapped in 2 places. The gaps were being mended with ice and stone, and with things the builders had not used in 1,000 years. Jon stood on the wall's top at dawn of the 4th day. He was covered in blood not his own. He had bandages on his left arm and his right thigh. Longclaw at his hip was clean because he had cleaned it. Dany came up the stair beside him. She was limping. Drogon was asleep at the foot of the wall. Rhaegal was flying in wide circles, tired and proud. Viserion had been taken south the day before, wrapped in a sail and weeping small fires. Mercy had said she would live, and Mercy did not lie about these things. Dany had not slept. Her face was older. Her eyes were clearer. She took Jon's hand. He let her. "Nephew," she said, "aunt, husband. If you will have me, I will have you." She looked out over the haunted forest. "I will have you, Jon Targaryen. I will have this kingdom with you. I will have the weirwood beside the sept. I will have a son, I think, some year. And if it is a son of ours, he will have both names, and if it be a daughter, she will have 3. I will have a queen's rooms of my own at Dragonstone. I will have a seat beside yours in the throne room. I will have everything. Yes, everything. Yes." They stayed on the wall, hand in hand, until the sun was all the way up, and the smoke had all gone south. And somewhere in the courtyard of Castle Black, a boy was laughing, for the first time in a month, and a raven was being untied. And the raven had a letter from Ned Stark in the Red Keep in King's Landing that said, "My son, the realm holds. Come home." They came home. Jon and Daenerys Targaryen were wed in the godswood of Winterfell on the first night of autumn, with the pool's face still in unshed leaves, and the old gods did not say yes and did not say no, but the weirwood sap ran red, as it is said to do when the gods are pleased. And the Faith married them again, a week later, in the great sept of Baelor, for the lords of the south. And the 2 weddings were counted as one in the chronicles, which is as it should be, because a marriage between ice and fire is not a thing one ceremony can hold. They reigned, as kings and queens do, for a time, and for a time they reigned well, and for a time they reigned less well, and the chroniclers argued afterward about which years were which. That argument is not for this telling. But let it be said that, in the summer of the year 299, since Aegon's conquest, a northern bastard of a king who was not a king, who thought himself a bastard he was not, who sat a throne he had not asked to sit, and his aunt who was not a stranger though she came across the sea a stranger, rode side by side to the end of the world and held it together, and that a boy of Winterfell, whose father had lied to him for his good, and whose uncle had died asking only that he be safe, grew into a king who would not lie to his sons for their good, and did not ask his uncles to die for his peace, and that the realm learned, in some small measure, from that new silence. So ends the first chapter of the reign of Jon, the first of that name, king of the Andals and the first men, lord of the 7 kingdoms, protector of the realm, and his queen Daenerys, third of that name, last of her brothers, and the first chapter of a peace which, like all peaces, was brief, and like some peaces, was worth it.